HIPPE uses the most up-to-date information on budgeting concepts, financial education, and credit information. We are educated professionals that bring the very best practices from experts in their fields for free as community charity.
HIPPE is not responsible or otherwise liable for any advice, guidance, or instruction that creates a negative outcome. Recommendations accepted by individuals are at the control and execution of those individuals, including all outcomes therein.
Aloha, and welcome to HIPPE's 201 Financial Training and Counseling. I'm Rick.
I'm Joni.
Let's get started. In today's series, we will be covering interest for creditors. Now, most importantly out of this is our chance to understand why the banks are like a casino. They will always win. And then from there, how can we take the most advantage out of the system, out of the lending world, and use that as a tool for our strategy for wealth building?
I have a couple questions for you. Do you know how much it will cost for you to borrow from the bank? Also, how long do you think it will take for you to pay off your debt? What do you think, Rick?
Well, I'll tell you what, it all depends on the interest rate, okay? It also depends on how much inputs you're putting into your checkbook or your bank account, your checking account, your savings account. How much are you earning every month in order to pay things off? Let's throw this one out there. How much are you actually spending on credit, on building debt, rather than paying cash? These are things that will all break down how quick can you reduce debt or how quick can you stop paying interest to the banks. So, if we were to put a definition on what interest is, what is your definition, Joni?
When you borrow money, it's how much you pay to borrow.
Yes, and not only that, it's the profit of the banking world, okay? Interest is their profit. They're making money off you every single day. Welcome to capitalism. Now, when we harness this thing right, that's how you can actually increase your financial wealth just by using these tools to your advantage. Now, if you're anything like how we were at least once, twice, 5, 10 times in our life, sometimes it gets, a little out of bounds, a little over our head, because it's just difficult while you're raising kids, while you're kind of on a fixed income, while you're trying to put gas in the car, pay for the kids' stuff for school, whatever it is, maybe even trying to have some sort of vacation for your family, or at least some family time, some well-deserved family time. All these things cost money. And if we don't be careful, we can put ourselves in a big financial bind. So let's get into some of these financial binds. We're going to start right now with WalletHub's average for interest rate on credit cards. Now, what we've discovered that currently right now with the national debt the way it is and the national interest rate growing, the average rate for a credit card right now we're talking about excellent credit getting something, really low, and fair credit getting something really high.
So wait a minute, 19.13%. So you're telling me for every $100 a year, we would be paying $19.13?
Yep.
Wow, that's a lot.
Literally what it says. How can we get around this? Well, we're going to explore that a little bit. But first off, let's figure out when we look at data, what this data will tell us on how we can harness better rates and what those better rates will do for us. So we're going to reach out to the financialmentor.com. There's a great calculator talking about a debt reduction calculator here. You search on this site right here below. And then from there, we're going to program a couple of things. So if you really want to, while you're watching this video, you can pop up a laptop screen, go for it. Now, let's get into this type of structured scenario here. We're going to take $10,000. Now from that $10,000, we're going to pay $220 a month. Now with that $220 a month, we're going to leave that constant across the whole board. So even if there's $500 left of a balance, we're going to leave that at $220 minimum payment per month. Now, the first scenario, we're going to run it at 18%. Second scenario, we're going to run it at 3%. Now, we're going to see what that turns into. Let's take a look at the first scenario. When we run it at 18% interest rate, it's going to take 77 months to pay off that debt. That's over 7 years at this point, and an astounding $6,900 to pay in interest to the banks. That is crazy. So you're telling me...
That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money. You're telling me you borrowed $10,000 and you got to pay somebody almost $7,000 back? That's horrendous. We need to get in control of this. We need to harness this to our advantage. There's plenty of tools out there. We're going to explore these tools here in a second, but let's see if we use one of these tools and we find a way to get it down to 3%. What does that do for us?
Wait, who gives a 3% interest rate?
We're going to get there, all right? We're going to talk about...
Not very many people.
Where are you going to find these programs out there? We're going to talk about that. Let's say we find a 3% program and we now plug that into our scenario. We started at 10% again at 220 across the board. We're going to keep paying that 220. This turns that $6,900 interest payment for that entire time frame to only $628. We just saved over $6,300 purely by just reducing that interest rate. You're going to win over the casino, the big banks. You're going to win. You're going to get that money back. It's a really fantastic thing to think about.
That's a huge difference in interest payments going to a bank, and they're making money off of you.
School clothes, birthdays, holiday season, food for Thanksgiving. We can go on and on.
That's a used car. That's
everything.
That's a
right?
lot.
So we got to find out how we can do this. Let's go ahead and see how we're going to go about this in the first place. Well, let's get into these different types here. So, is interest avoidable on certain types of debt? We're going to talk about these in different categories. So let's start at the very top at interest free. Everybody loves free interest, okay? You're gonna hardly find that today, but it still exists. Now, some of these programs you'll find free. You might have excellent credit, and they'll throw you things like, I don't know, introductory rate on a credit card.
Correct. Promotional introductory rates from credit cards. They'll entice you with a 0% for 2 years, 24 months, whatever the term is. What you can do is, for a fee, there's always a fee attached, you can take a portion of your balance or take your balance from another card and put it into that introductory rate credit card. The thing is you do have to pay it before that 24-month term or whatever that term is that you have, because they will charge you the interest from that whole period of time of 24 months on that 25th payment.
Depending on the credit card. So read the fine print. Some of them will say, you know what? We're going to let you rack up this $10,000. And then from that $10,000, we're going to start putting you on a program to pay this interest back at a 24% interest rate at month 25. How does that sound? Right? That's the system trying to get over you. Now, the other way around it is some furniture stores are like this. You'll find these I like to call them boutique cards. These boutique cards out there, you will find, especially furniture stores, not knocking furniture stores, but these are the boutique kind of cards. They will say, hey, you know what? We're going to loan this money to you. You're going to pay no interest. But if you don't pay it off by that 18-month, 24-month, we're charging you all that interest on the very next day after that term expires. Read the fine print. Now, if you harness this to your capability, even like Joni says, you take that, maybe it's like a 3% charge usually to take a balance and throw it into this introductory rate, you're still winning. You know, you took a high balance like 18% in the example we gave and turned it into a 3% charge, and now you're winning, okay? So this is how we need to refocus ourselves on this topic. Let's get into the next one. Now, if you own a home, there are ways that you can reduce the amount of interest you pay on a whole 30 years. Now, we're not saying you're going to have a mortgage for an entire 30 years, but let's get educational here. Let's actually get, driven in scenarios so we can understand how to harness this data, turn it into information for you. 13-month mortgage payment. What can you say about that, Joni?
So the 13-month mortgage payment, there's actually two ways to do it. If you wanted to, every January, you can put in an additional payment. That would be considered your 13-month mortgage payment. I'm tongue-tied, sorry. Or you can do biweekly payments, which you would pay 2 payments a month. You would split your payment, and that actually equates to the 13-month mortgage payment also.
There you go. Yeah, this is a tongue tire. So did I say that right?
Tongue twister.
Tire? There you go, tongue twister. As you see, it'll save you 3 years and 8 months off a 30-year mortgage payment. And all you're doing is either A, making that 13th month payment. When you make that 13th month, it all goes to principal, or you structure in that bi-weekly payment. And next thing you know, you're shaving off interest costs. And that's the key. You're shaving off money to the banks. You're winning over the banks. Okay, let's talk about interest reduction. Now, this is a very good topic because you have to harness this debt, but you must do it smartly. There's smart ways to do it where you can still survive, and there's options where you're left only with these types of choices. So we got to be very careful how we use these tools. And the most important thing to recognize on these tools, the most important things are, do we need our credit right now? Do we need it? If the answer is no, we can survive without using our credit. Like, I don't need a 750 right now for anything I'm doing. I'm not trying to buy a home or anything like that. Good. Let's concentrate on lowering that debt picture so we can get in control of our budget. So let's talk about the simple one that's kind of on the surface and doesn't really scratch into your credit management, and that is debt consolidation. So debt consolidation is very simple to explain. You reach out and you grab some kind of financing. It could even be that introductory interest rate type of card, and they're going to structure you out. Here's your balance. This is how much you can borrow. Here's your credit limit. At that point, whether it's an installment or a revolving debt, whichever it is, you're going to be structured into a payment at a lower interest rate, hopefully, and you can take all your existing debt and toss it in there. Now, you're hopefully achieving two things. One, a lower interest rate, and then two, a lower monthly payment per month. Now, again, we're not saying you're going to survive by just making minimum payments, but we're talking budget here. If you can survive just at least paying the bills until you can chunk it down, great. Now you're not borrowing credit for other things in life that you need in order to sustain yourself and your family. The next one, it starts getting pretty risky. It gets down to debt negotiation or credit negotiation. Now, at credit negotiation, it's still very safe. It's there to protect your score. It's there to keep it at a certain level. Now, they will mark your credit picture, okay, your actual credit report. They're going to mark it that you're in credit counseling. You can still do plenty of things, and it's actually to your benefit to have that mark rather than missed payments. Trust me on this. Now, with that program, how they structure it is you contact some nonprofits out there, reach out to us. We can tell you the nonprofits that are in place right now. Sometimes nonprofits open and close, but they all operate the same way. They are structured with and affiliated with other companies out there, some of the top lenders out there, thousands, hundreds. And you present them with your debt, you present them with your statements, and then they'll tell you, okay, we can lower this one down to this. They have programs established with all these different creditors. They can knock that down on interest and negotiate down a payment. So you're going to see that your obligation is lowered per month for every single card. So that's going to help you on the budget. Now, the interest rate will also creep down on each one of these cards. Some of these scenarios that I've helped people with, we've seen them knock down about a quarter, where it was just a quarter remaining of the amount of interest that they were paying before. So if I was paying $100 a month in interest, now I'm paying $25. You can see the big difference in that. Let's make that $1,000 in interest, and now you're paying $250 in interest. You just saved $750 of interest per month. This is what they're here for. These are nonprofit organizations. Now, with that said, they will collect a fee, but those fees are way less, like $50, compared to paying so much interest. So as you see, it's a benefit, and everybody wins with the nonprofit, including you as the borrower. Now, let's get into the more risky ones. We have worse things where you start working with attorneys. If you miss payments, then you can actually reach out to these these different lawyer companies here and there, and they actually have programs that if you are currently delinquent, they will then get you out of any kind of bankruptcy matter or your pre-bankruptcy, put it that way, and they will negotiate to absolve you of debt. We got to be very careful with this. You will then have a mark on your credit for at least 7 years, showing that they handled your account in some way and created a charge-off where they allowed you to absolve that debt. Be very careful with that. You only want to pull that pin or break that glass if you absolutely need to. Lastly, let's get into the fun ones, and that's if you own property. I'll let you take this one over, Joni.
With a cash out refinance, what you're doing is you refinance your property. You can harness the equity that you've gained and use that to pay down some debt. You can do that, use it for paying down your mortgage. You can use it to take a vacation. Be careful with that cash out refinance on how you use it. But there is that type of program out there as well. So home equity lines of credit. You want to tell us a little bit about the HELOC?
Absolutely. So HELOCs are great because they are an interest-only payment, and it allows you to then pay back as you want to, back towards that balance that you borrowed, but they're not structuring in a principal payment. You're just paying back the interest. Now you have an obligation and responsibility to pay as much balance back as possible, but you can see now you have room to now use those funds, pay off those creditors, pay off that high interest rate. And now at your liberty, at your comfort, you can pay down that balance.
So what I really love about the home equity lines of credit is it's different. A different type of loan that's not amortized. It's a simple interest calculation when you're paying the interest back. So example, you have $100,000 that you're borrowing and it's a 3% interest rate. It's $100,000 times 3% divided by 12. That would be your monthly interest payment for that year.
So
a little bit different.
Yes, definitely look at all the different programs that are out there. If you're ever into that zone, feel free to call us, email us, and we can actually explain that a little bit better. Now, let's get into the other stuff that is also risky, but is there to protect you. And the first one we'll talk about is interest deferred. So Joni, introduce us into the student loan deferment.
So student loans, when you have hardships, you can actually defer your loan, your student loan payment. You just need to make a phone call and let them know of your situation. And a lot of times they will just defer your loan. There is the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program. What I understand, if you pay the minimum of your student loan for 10 years, you can apply for a public service loan forgiveness and they will actually eliminate your debt.
Now, see,
Read the fine print.
Yes, we got a lot of tools here. So you even have also in that a lot of veterans who are 100% disabled. If the program still exists around the time when you're 100% disabled, there is some loan forgiveness out there if those laws are still in place and those programs are still active. So do your research. Now, it's important we understand that even though something's deferred, please make a plan to pay it, even if no payment is due. You know, in some cases, even those student loan deferments or even the loan forgiveness program will still require you to pay your payments and be out of deferment. Read that fine print. And with that deferment, even though there's no payment due, find out if they're still charging you interest. We know a doctor, and that doctor now, after 20 years from using his student loans, he's at $400,000 of student loan debt. That's an obligation over his head that he's rolling the dice on, that he could be 100% disabled or something like that, so he can actually get that taken care of. That's a pretty risky tool to work with, so be very careful how you approach those situations. A lot of people tell you the best way is interest avoidance. And interest avoidance is owning something outright. Save money, use money to pay it off. But we will warn you, you have to use your credit. See the credit management class. We have to still keep ourselves subject to FICO and everything that they judge us if we're credit worthy for the future. So you have to still structure in having some form of debt. Even if it's at zero balance, you still need to maintain that. But in some cases, like how a lot of people do it, including us, you spend on that credit card, you turn right around in your budget and you pay it off every month. Now your credit's still alive and you're avoiding an interest payment.
That is the key thing.
That is the key thing. We got to stay within our means, okay? Now, getting to the next subject, how are we going to approach our debts? What's the best way that we can approach our debts? At this point, what kind of tools can we introduce into the program? Do we want to introduce a tool like we just showed you? Or are we going to let it ride? Do we just want to get into that low interest rate and maybe use a snowball or avalanche effect and just let it ride and let it pay itself off naturally? In like the credit negotiation stuff, it's going to ride itself out. You're not going to see any penny of that structured payment until every debt is paid. So that's already going to do it for you. Can you do that yourself? Absolutely you can. You just have to get in control of your situation and try to balance out what is important to your life. Paying down debt or splurging, right? Having a better quality of life for your family in the future, or spending too much right now on things you think you need rather than things you know you need. Besides that, let's get into these types of debts. Now, if we want to eliminate some debts, throw up this chart right here. Let's give an example of how we think we would approach this. On the screen, we have 4 forms of debt on the screen. Now we have one with an 18% interest rate, $220 a month payment, but wow, look at that balance, $9,000. We then have a 21% with a $160 a month payment at $4,000 a balance. We have a 14% with a $170 payment per month and $467 remaining on that balance. And then finally, a 4.49%, $611 per month, $2,600 balance remaining. Joni, I'll let you take a stab at this. Pick one and tell me why you think one of them is what, and let's see what it is.
The 21%, I think it's a credit card payment.
Okay, well, there you go, 21%. Why do we want to say that that is a credit card?
Because most people, when they're just getting into credit cards, it's typically between 21 and 25%. So that's what my guess is.
Okay, I like to structure it as when you see a balance really close to, a principal payment really close to the interest rate, that's kind of letting you know how they're structuring the payments. And as their interest rates get higher, you're getting really close to paying half interest on what you borrowed and what you're actually paying for the minimum payments. I'm going to pick 18% as another credit card purely because if I take that 21%, which is at $4,000, and then I double that to $8,000, that's pretty comparable to the amount of interest I'm paying on the 18%. 18% is still lower, but you can see the way they calculate those revolving debt paybacks is pretty much actual. So I'm going to say that's credit. Well, there you go. It's credit.
All right. So I think the 4.49% is a car loan. The reason being, it looks like this is an installment loan. $611. The interest is only at $9.31. So I think it's an installment loan that it's just going to ride out and you pay it off when you're done.
Very good. And as you see here, I'm going to pick the bottom at 4.49%, a car. All right, that's $611. And then from there, we have only $2,600 remaining. That's a steep payment for just $2,600 remaining.
That's what I just said.
Is that the one you just said?
I just said.
Okay. So I'm going to pick the 14%. I'm going to say that's an installment loan. I'm going to say the other one's a car. That looks more like a car to me just because it's a lower interest rate. And the personal loan, I'm going to say, is the 14%. And the reason why I'm saying that is because it has a very little tiny balance remaining with a very little interest charge. So I think we did some good work.
I think so.
Yeah, let's get into the next one. What would be the most important debt to pay and in what order? Now, we covered this many times, so reach back and look at our other classes, but let's dialogue on this. What do you think?
All right. So looking at the numbers, I like the snowball method. The $467 balance, that's the one that I would tackle first. Why? Because it's $467. It's the lowest balance.
What are you achieving by paying $400 off?
The $170 payment is going to roll into my car payment next.
So you're telling me you're going to get a feel-good story out of paying off a debt?
Yeah, absolutely. It feels good to just eliminate a debt altogether.
Yeah, so you got to figure out what strategy works for you. If it's a feel-good situation and you feel like you accomplished something, go for it. If you end up finding out that you need a better type of situation like me, I like paying off interest. I don't like paying the banks anything extra than I'm already paying them. So I want to make sure that the 21% interest rate is eliminated. I don't want to see it anymore. I want that debt gone. I don't care if it's $4,000. I want it gone. When that's gone, that same payment's going to roll into the next thing. I look at the long-term situation. I want to see how much interest I can shrink down over a long term. And again, you got to plan on not using any of that money when you pay it off. Roll it right into that, just like Joni said.
So I get it. The avalanche method, you do save interest. That's phenomenal. That's awesome. For the snowball method, I like that feel-good moment of just like, ooh, eliminated a bill. There's no right or wrong answer. Whatever you choose and whatever method works for you is what you choose, and it's going to work for you. You'll eliminate debt both ways, but you get to choose which one.
So long story very short, you need to take control of your situation. And then once you take control of your situation, harness it, okay? Eliminate that debt. Stop paying the banks their money. Stop the casino from always winning. Win yourself. Stop paying that interest or get that feel-good satisfaction of eliminating that debt. Okay. Thank you for watching. Please check out our survey. You can find it on Facebook or our website at www.hippe-education.org. Feel free to check us out on Facebook and Instagram, right?
Yep.
HIPPE. There you go.
HIPPE.education. Also, look us up on YouTube, search HIPPE Podcast. Please like and subscribe. We'd love to have you join us.
Yes, and please look for our content on Olelo and anywhere else that you'll find us on social media or our own YouTube. Thank you very much for watching. Take care.